Welcome to this panel. I'm very happy to be sitting here with these women talking about this issue or talking about ourselves, really. So I want to just start by saying thank you for joining us and being a part of the conversation. I hope everyone's been having a fantastic NAMM. Has everybody been having a good NAMM so far? Spending time in the ROLI room, I assume? Okay, so I came up with a couple questions that I wanted to ask these ladies that I think are questions that don't really get asked enough when we're talking about women in music technology. We tend to focus on kind of the negative component of the fact that there's not very many of us, as opposed to solution-based conversations. So I came up with a few questions, and what I want to start with is, I find that a lot of women feel deterred because they don't exactly know where to find information about how to use technology in a space that is comfortable for them. So I want to know about how you guys got your skill set, like who taught you, where did you find that information, and how did you get what you needed in order to get it done. Why don't we start with Karrie on the end?
Hello. When I started, there wasn't really education, so I learned by loading trucks, and I come from the opposite side as a working behind-the-scenes technician. So I learned by starting by loading trucks and on the job.
So other people...
finding mentors, working a lot.
Were they men? Were they women?
They were men.
Mostly men. Was it like a
30 years ago.
Was it difficult, like a situation to be in to learn that way?
I actually, 30 years ago when I started, I think it was easier for women than it is now.
Why do you say that?
It was very open, and no one really, they're like, yeah, as long as you can do the job. I think there's an incredible pushback right now against women getting their foot in the door.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Laura?
Well, I was a violinist, and my friend's boyfriend was a DJ, and I said, I want to play violin on your drum and bass music, and was like, what are you doing behind on the computer there? And he was like, oh, the learning curve is too high. You'll never get it. And I was like, oh, that lit a fire under me, so I just started learning and teaching myself and reading all of the books that I could find at that time, and then ran into other people that helped me and just kind of built up my knowledge along the way.
So piecing it together from other information from other people and then things you just taught yourself.
Yeah, this is pre-YouTube tutorials, so this is...
How did you do that? Just kidding.
I took one class with Cakewalk with floppy disks, I remember, in college, and that was the extent. Yes! Acid Pro, anyone? Acid Pro? Okay. No? No one did acid? No? Okay, sorry.
I think we actually take that for granted a lot of times that, 20 years ago, if somebody had a problem, they had to reference a manual and flip through pages. So it's so much easier to get information these days. Alexia?
I have been a musician my whole life, and I actually had a classical background. So I did not ever expect, whenever I was like 12, that I would ever do music technology. And then I went to Berklee in Boston, and I took this class that most people hate called M-Tech, which is Introduction to Music Technology. And I actually loved it, and I was like, what is this amazing software, all of these different options that we can use to make music. This is way better. And I want to do this, and then, I learned pretty much everything I know about music technology while I was at Berklee, and then, was able to continue learning, obviously, after with, tutorial videos, friends of mine that are incredibly talented, my mentors that I have stayed in contact with after graduating. So I feel very fortunate about, being able to learn everything that I did.
So it's more of a straight-ahead classical educational system that gave you all the information you needed.
Exactly,
That's
and
amazing.
It's interesting because, I really think that, in college, there's always a certain way of doing things, and, luckily in the particular majors that I chose, they were like, okay, we're going to teach you all of the rules, and then you can break any of them that you want. So they encouraged that, actually, which was really important because, it allowed everyone to just kind of choose their own path and be really free and, like, really get into, what they wanted to learn and what they wanted to pursue as a lifelong career.
It's amazing. All right, Lisa.
Similar to you. I grew up studying classical piano, and then I studied jazz piano and at USC, and straight out of college, I found myself on a very prestigious gig somehow, and I had to learn on the job. So I was touring with the Smashing Pumpkins, learning about keyboard synthesis. I was totally learning on the job, and I spent many a night just digging through manuals and getting acquainted with pedals and studying sounds on records and creating sounds, learning how to create sounds that complement what's going on, and as well as just copying sounds straight and getting an ear for a sonic kind of palette that works for whatever scenario you're in.
That's amazing. I was a singer-songwriter, and that was pretty much all I had intentions of ever being. And I just realized at some point that I couldn't do what I needed to do unless I knew how to use the computer, because I didn't have enough money to pay somebody else to do it for me. And so one day I just decided that I was going to figure it out. And a friend of mine, an engineer, a male engineer that I still work with to this day, taught me how to use Pro Tools and edit in Pro Tools. So I just started by editing, and then taught myself everything else I know just by actually doing it wrong and then having somebody point out that I was doing it wrong, and then kind of learning how to do things properly just through like extreme trial and error. So it seems like we all kind of got what we needed in completely different ways, but the point is that we got what we needed, right? Okay, my next question is, if you could give somebody who is interested in having a career path like yours one skill set, like the most important thing that you think that you should tell somebody else to cultivate this skill, what would it be and why? In any order. If anybody has any good ideas, just jump on in.
Networking. Just talk to people, meet people. Because in my world, in the touring world, if you're not cool, people don't want to be around you. You don't get picked, to go out. So that's the main thing, is be a cool person and be someone that other people want to be around. And then also be good at your job. But that, I think, sometimes comes second, because I know a lot of people, and you can probably attest in the touring world, that aren't that good at their jobs, but they're somehow there because they're amazing people. So
how do you get better at networking?
It definitely is a skill that you just have to keep trying and talking to people and just putting yourself out there. I remember when I was younger, I didn't have the confidence really that I do now, of course, as we all do, and I just kept putting myself out there and talking to people and seeing who had suggestions for me and just trying to get better and seeing who would hire me. And then the more you do it, the more you talk to people, then the more your name gets around and people will hire you.
Amazing.
Kind of riffing off of what you said about confidence, that's actually what I think is, super important, is being super confident, because I just remember there were so many times where I doubted myself and I was just like, oh, well, I'm not gonna submit a song for this competition because there's no way that I'm ever gonna be chosen. And I missed out on, a significant amount of opportunities because I didn't have the confidence to just pursue them. So now I always tell everyone, you really have to be fearless and, with your art, and kind of just be completely genuine and be like, yeah, this is me, and not everyone is gonna like it, but I'm so confident in what I do, and it's so genuine that no one else's opinion is gonna kind of break this, artistic foundation that I have.
Yeah, asking for what you want, and being very clear about it.
I'll just say networking is important. Having a passion, you got to keep learning. Can't stay stagnant in your career. Yeah.
To the
Those
point.
are all good.
Agreed. All of that. That's so important. Along with that, I would say adaptability is so important, especially in all these incredible changes that are happening in the world and technology. It's so important to, evolve with the changing in the sounds. And for me, as a pop writer especially, I need to know what sounds people are using now and kind of have a sense of what that sounds like and think about how I can reinvent it. And when I think back to my earlier career, had I just stayed, in my comfortable little jazz piano world, I never would have had the most incredible experiences of my life or that great job as well. So I think that's really important, as well as the confidence and the resilience to continue no matter who shuts a door in your face. It's important to remember there's always someone looking for exactly what you have to offer, and just keep that in mind.
That's great. Well, let's talk about this idea of confidence then, because it seems to be kind of a reoccurring theme. And I find that, at least in my experience, I lacked that confidence in many times and kind of wish I could go back and redo certain situations and come at them from a little bit more confident of a situation. Like how did you gain that confidence? Or was there a moment that, or like a day where you're like, you know what? I got this. Like, when does that happen? How do you get that confidence?
Practice, I think. It's not like one day that you just are like, oh, I'm confident now. It's just repetition, just doing the same things over and over, even when you're scared. Remember, I used to do demos at NAMM a long time ago, and I was scared, and I got out there and I did it anyway, and I just kept doing it, and then pretty soon I didn't think about it anymore.
So bravery leads to confidence?
Basically, yeah. The old adage, you fake it till you make it. I mean, it actually, it works. And hopefully it doesn't show on your face that you're scared shitless.
Yeah. Taking opportunities and getting out of your comfort zone, maybe signing up for a gig that you're not totally sure you can pull off, but you should be able to pull it off. And the next time you've gained those skills and that confidence, and it keeps building.
Yeah. And also, I find when I'm scared shitless, if I have a really scary job coming up or have to memorize a 22-page score for a Tal Wilkenfeld gig, then the best thing I can do is to prepare, because I find that the preparation is a big part of the confidence, whether it's 5 minutes of meditating before you walk into the room with the suits, or whatever it is to get you in that headspace to walk in there, but especially the musical preparation. Oh, you got one.
Yeah, I actually had a very interesting experience during my senior year in college, where my mentor, who I was doing my senior project with, I brought in a song, and I was just like, oh, what do you think about this? I was like super excited, and he was just like, this isn't you. Like, I've been, like, I know you, and like I've been mentoring you for a few years, and like this is just not you, and I want you to go home, and I don't want you to like think about it. I want you to just like write something and then bring it back tomorrow. And so, having that pressure put on me to like come up with something really fast that was also genuine, it really was a life-changing moment for me, because then I was like, I really don't have to like conform to whatever style people want me to do, and it actually helped me find my artistic voice, which is what gave me the confidence to pursue music full-time, like, shamelessly. I'm like, this is who I am, and this is my music, and like you said before, there's someone out there, or like a group of people out there who this style is perfect for, and like, I think kind of just keeping that in mind, like, okay, maybe you haven't found like the right place for your art yet, but you still have to be very persistent, because if it's something that you're passionate about, then you can't just, toss it aside. You have to be patient. Yeah, so definitely that experience, like discovering my sound, is what gave me the confidence to really like do music full time.
So it sounds a lot like just being yourself. If you're not trying to be somebody else, then you don't have to lack confidence, because you can just be who you are. I feel like it never goes away totally. Like every single time I get a gig, or I'm asked to do something that maybe is, I feel like, they're gonna find out every time. But I just do it anyways, and I just try extra hard, and then it always ends up working out somehow, and just through the process of doing that so many times, I feel like I'm almost immune in a way now. I'm like, it's okay. Like, I know I don't maybe feel 100% about that, but I'm just gonna do it anyways. And for me, it was actually my boss. I actually had a moment where I was like, I am a valuable asset to who I'm working for. And it was she's one of my mentors, and she really just laid it out for me. I'd had people tell me that I was good at what I did before, but I don't think I ever believed it until I heard it from her. And ever since that day, I don't think I ever looked back. For some reason, there was a day for me where things changed. Let's see. How are we doing on time? Is anybody? Can't see anything. I know we were behind 5 minutes.
I think you said
5. Okay. Let's see. We need a short question then. All right. If you could give somebody a piece of advice that yourself, if you could give past you your own advice, 10, 5, last year, whatever, what would the advice you would give to yourself from where you are now?
I got it. You go. Sorry.
I guess it's just continuing on that same path. I remember I had a few people. Actually, I had a professor in college that wasn't so nice to me. And, I was a violin performance major, but I always knew violin wasn't something that I wanted to do professionally for the rest of my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that playing in an orchestra wasn't something that I wanted to do. And I had a lot of other interests. And I just remember not having the confidence to perform after performing my whole life, because I felt like I wasn't good enough, because I didn't measure up to these other people that were practicing 8 hours, 10 hours a day. And this teacher really made me feel bad about myself. And I carried that with me for a few years, and I definitely wish I could go back and be like, hey, it doesn't matter that you're not practicing 8 to 10 hours a day because you're working on producing music and you're learning all these other things. It doesn't matter. But I didn't realize that at the time, and it really affected my performing. So I just go back and realize that all these people that came in and said, negative things to me, just to let it roll off, because I was becoming more of myself every step, as we were just saying. And that's all I needed to do, is just become more of who I am. And I've done that, and now I'm here, and screw that guy.
Amen.
Oh, and I was going to say, along with that, that's so good, to stay in touch with your you-ness and your reason for doing this in the first place. And for me, I can remember that exact moment when I saw someone. It was my dad conducting the orchestra at Capitol Records, and that was the moment where I said, that's what I want to do. And staying in touch with that reason, for me, it was I wanted to, it was almost like he was painting music in the sky, and the way that it made me feel to embody the music. For me, that was what first moved me, and just to stay in touch with your you-ness and the thing that makes you your heart beat, and the thing that makes you crave doing this crazy, awesome thing that we do in a sometimes male-dominated field. And don't compare yourself to anybody. That's the worst. And when you catch yourself doing that, you got to come back to your you-ness, and stay in that space. That's where you need to be. That's where you'll be the most inspired too, when you're not trying to be anybody else. Sorry.
Yeah, you got to find where you're supposed to be. Probably my biggest regret was working for a band for about 5 years too long, because I was scared that I would never work for another big name band. It was income. No one would ever hire me again. And it was a fine job, but it didn't inspire me anymore. And I wasn't enjoying the people that I was working with. And when I finally left, it was the best thing I ever did. And it wasn't scary anymore, and I was happy.
Yeah, there are two main things that I would give to younger me as advice. And the first thing is, don't be afraid to break the rules. I wish I would have broken a lot more rules in music when I was younger, because I feel like the development of my music and the evolution of it would be a lot further along. And it wasn't until I graduated that I really started being more experimental with everything that I was involved in, and then it just like opened up a new world for me. And then also, I wish that I would have been more receptive to like receiving help from my colleagues. I always was like, being a woman in the tech world, I was like, I need to learn how to do everything myself and be totally self-sufficient and not rely on anyone else. And so I kind of just like would close myself off sometimes to like collaborating with other people, particularly men. And I was just like, I need to just like do this by myself, because I really feel like I have to prove myself. But everyone has so much knowledge to offer, especially in an environment like Berklee. And so definitely just, being open to learning from other people and collaborating. And I mean, you'll know if it's not a good fit immediately, but still staying open to that and like trusting people more, especially like the women who are always like being, put down and having to prove ourselves way more, still keeping that openness despite the fight. Yeah.
I chose an identity, when I was younger. I'd be like, I am an artist. And then there was so many other possibilities for me to do all sorts of other things that didn't necessarily line up with the identity I had created for myself. And I shut myself off from doing a lot of things because it wasn't aligned with my identity. And then once I shed that and I started doing so many different things, like everything started going right in my career and my life. So I wish I would have been more open earlier to different versions of myself. And I never thought I was going to teach. I never thought I was going to produce. I never thought I was going to use a computer. And look at me now. Like, I have no idea how this happened, but it was because I started saying yes instead of saying no. All right, well, thank you ladies so much for joining me and having this conversation. It was fantastic. Oh, we're time for questions. Does anybody want to ask a question to anybody?
Everyone's just vibing out in this room. It's just vibes in here.
Maybe it's as simple as asking, but how do you get a mentor?
Well, I mean, mine was, I kind of had it easy, like just going through college. You are exposed to all these different professors, and, I kind of just like chose a couple that really seemed to get what I wanted to do and who I knew could, help me reach my full potential. But even in, just everyday life, like I have mentors now that I've just met through like different, events that I've gone to, even like concerts that I've gone to or shows that I've played. Like someone has come up to me and been like, oh, like I really like what you do, and like they're older and I can see that they like know way more than I do, so I'm just like, okay, let me like see, you know, like keep in touch with this person and see if they can provide some guidance for me. And I think, you know, not being afraid to ask and reach out for help, because there are people that are ready to mentor you. You know, you just have to like let them know like, hey, I'm open and I want to learn, and like if you have the time, if you'll give me the time of day, you know, I would love to like, you know, pick your brain.
I don't think I've ever had a mentor. I know it's sad. I'm looking for a mentor. Does anyone want to help me? A lot of people want me to be their mentor, and I'm like, but I need a mentor too. I feel like for me, I've just a lot of peers, people my own age. We've just like share knowledge. You know, I've always wanted that like super rad older person to like come out of the woodwork and be like, let me show you the way. It'd be awesome. But instead it's just been me and like my community, and that's amazing as well, because we kind of just lift each other up and say, you know, send each other tracks and get feedback and, you know, go from there.
Yeah, and it's reaching out to your community that you're part of, whether it's audio engineering or on the artistic side or visual artists. It's finding your community and reaching out to them. Sound Girls is a great community. You can ask people that have years and years of audio experience. If they can't help you, they'll find someone to help you. And there's great women's communities everywhere. So it's finding your tribe and your community.
Any other questions out there?
In terms of the mentorship thing, I mentor so many people just as students, and then clients and just other women. And I find, and this is the same thing for networking, if anybody wants to get better at networking, like I have an ethos about how this works. I say that when you meet somebody, if they're gonna mentor you, it has to be organic, right? You can't just say, excuse me, ma'am, like I need a mentor, because it's almost off-putting, and I've had a lot of people approach me in that way, and it has to be natural, right? So, and it's the same thing when you're cultivating a relationship with somebody in the industry. So I think the best thing to do is to ask somebody about themselves. You know, if you're interested in working or learning from somebody, when you meet them, be like, oh man, I'm just so intrigued by what it is you're doing. Like, tell me about how you got to where you are. And if you ask somebody about themselves, then they just open up, right? Because you're not asking them for something. You're asking them information about themselves. And I think naturally women invest in other people. You know, just naturally we tend to do that. So if you ask for help after you open that conversation in a really natural way, that person will help you or find the right person to help you. It's just all about how you approach people. And you know, so once you find them, just come at them properly, and I think you'd be pleasantly surprised by the results.
Because everyone likes to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
Well, most everyone. I don't know, maybe you don't. Do you? No.
All right, that was fantastic. Thank you all so much.